While sitting on the Prince of Wales Range in 2005, John pointed out the course of the Maxwell River, a remote valley that drains the south end of the range, running parallel to the Franklin to meet with the Denison River. We doubted its upper reaches had ever been paddled. The seeds of a trip were planted, but finding a route to the upper river with the extremely heavy packs of a river trip required some serious thought. Our solution was to paddle the Jane River until it is nearest the Maxwell, and then paddle or drag the boats up the smaller Algonquian rivulet before bashing across country. We allowed 12 days, not knowing what we would be up against. However, a well-timed thunderstorm gave us a hand, swelling the Maxwell River and allowing us to complete the trip in 8 days. Our party of 3 travelled from the Franklin River Bridge on the Lyell Highway, where the disused and overgrown Jane River track runs south, to the long-abandoned goldfields. The late start and the 35-kilogram loads led us to camp in splendid rainforest south of the track's highest point at Margaret Pass. Next morning revealed clear skies, and we started early, keen to get the loads off our back before the heat came. By lunch, we were setting up our boats next to the gentle Erebus rivulet, which we followed to its meeting with the Jane. The Jane is a beautiful river, named for Lady Jane Franklin, who crossed this wilderness with her husband in a time when it was not the thing for a lady to do. It starts east of Frenchman's Cap and follows a long curve to meet with the Franklin River. It is highly regarded for its beauty, as well as the effort it takes to descend. It is only suitable for small inflatable craft due to the long haul necessary to get in there. Not far into the first major gorge, named Enkidu Gorge, the river drops below large boulders, the first major portage of our trip. Fortunately, the craft we were using were very suited to this kind of travel. Just pick up your rather heavy pack and you're walking under a boat. Our first camp was not far beyond this, and we made the most of the sunlight on the large slabs of rock to get dry. The third day began with a short paddle before we entered more regions of large boulders where the river flows under them. This led to still pools with sheer sides before the last part of the gorge where the descent became steeper. Rob was able to acquaint himself with these boats in the smaller rapids. But the heavy packs made the craft a little top-heavy, resulting in a surprise swim for John. In such a remote place, a rapid is not descended without first scouting it and looking for danger and places to get out in case of a spill. Often overlooked is the risk of injury when carrying heavy loads over wet, slippery boulders and old trees. We sadly left the lovely Jane and turned off to paddle upstream on the Algonquian rivulet until a suitable site was reached to camp in preparation for the scrub bash to the Maxwell River. Paddling and wading up the rivulet was surprisingly pleasant. After setting up camp, considerable effort was made to get our equipment dry to minimise the wait for the journey into the Maxwell River Valley. The next day's journey was tiring. After a morning of ups and downs, we finally followed a long ridge down to the river. This high up, we didn't expect it to be paddleable, and it didn't surprise us to find the river to be a 2-metre wide trench. The afternoon was spent crossing back and forth over the river, heading south through varying botanical obstacles and recurrent rain squalls. We were delighted mid-afternoon to find a large number of hewn pines. Rob never quite trusted the navigation, but we finally reached a point where we thought we would be able to paddle. Even if it involved dragging the boat over small rapids, we would have the load off our shoulders. We need not have worried. After setting up our tent, a thunderstorm passed over. The next day, the river was 1/2 metre higher and flowing fast. Going forward was no longer a problem. Keeping control in the narrow creek and avoiding half-submerged snags became the order of the day. After barrelling past the junction with the Lancelot rivulet, the river suddenly dropped into a narrow defile before entering the first major gorge. This was spectacular and beyond what we'd expected this far upstream. The beautiful gorge was enhanced by the large hewn pines that trailed their long fingers in the water. Only the very lowest reaches of the Maxwell, near its junction with the Denison, was subject to pining activity, and we were awed by the magnificent giant standing here. The remainder of the afternoon consisted of hard work. The next section of river is almost invisible on satellite and aerial photos due to overhanging vegetation. On the ground, it is marked by recurrent log sieves, where larger trees have been able to span the river and smaller ones have caught up against them. They are dangerous, both as traps to entangle a paddler and as unstable structures that need to be climbed over. Repeatedly pulling a heavy water-filled boat and rucksack onto your back while standing on a half-submerged, slippery log in a fast-flowing current in the rain is exhausting and demoralising. We joked that our training for this trip should have included standing one-legged on a slippery log with a 50-kilogram pack balanced on the other knee while someone hit you with a stick and sprayed you with a hose. We welcomed the river becoming wider the next day, only to discover it fell into another gorge, requiring a long portage. However, this brought the sun out, and we enjoyed a glorious afternoon paddle on the wider river.